Hello, everyone. This is Stacey with SF Johnson Consulting and Construction Services. And in this first video, we are going to do an overview of the full set that we're going to work on in this first estimate, this Dutch Brothers coffee for the plumbing set. We're going to complete the full estimate, but in the first video, we're just going to go over each of the sheets individually just to make sure you get the feel of what we're going to be producing the estimate for. In good practice, it's always good to review the specifications. Make sure you watch your specifications video. That's an additional video that's included in the set, so you can know exactly where to go, because again, the specifications are the written words that go with the plans, and so it's going to make everything clear for you that you may not see here on the plans. And sometimes in this set, I think in particular, it's going to give you a small specifications on one of the final pages. But always make sure before you put your material list together that you read through the specifications, because it's going to be things specific to your material that'll be there that may not be on the plans specifically, and so you want to make sure you get all of the details before you start to put together your cost for your material. All right, so in the review of the plumbing set, we have the cover sheet, and the cover sheet, of course, is going to give us all of the plumbing equipment, and this is of course what it calls it on the plan. And so it's just up to us to make sure we're counting correctly. And for new estimators, it's important to know that you're going to see most of the same equipment on both plans. So you'll see the water closets on the waste plan. You'll also see the water closets on the water plan, freshwater plan. And so make sure, like some have done in the past, don't double it up. It's not two separate sets. There are certain things that are on the waste plan that you won't see on the water plan. For instance, if it has like a some kind of grease storage, grease waste container underground like that, you'll see it on the waste plan, but you may not necessarily see it on, you won't see it on the clean water plan, because that's specifically a waste related piece of equipment. And so when I do the takeoffs for the equipment, I don't use the either of the plans. It really depends on the size of the plan or the size of the set, but I typically use the riser diagram, because the riser diagram is the whole system, so it'll show you everything, won't double it up. It's the whole system, the riser view. And so depending on the size, and most times it just makes it easier for me just to do my equipment counts from the riser, but it really depends on what makes you feel more comfortable. And so our cover sheets, in this case, and every set's going to be different. So this cover sheet's giving us all of the equipment and then all of the calculations, everything the plumber needs. But as the estimator, we're not the plumber. So what our job is to do is to produce accurate counts and measurements based on the plans. Note all mistakes that may be there. If there are some revisions, like revision bubbles or whatever, make sure you note that somewhere on in the takeoff or on the actual estimate. So we're always going to look for the date that the set of plans were approved for construction, because sometimes you'll get those GCs that are just scoping for a number, which they could tell you in the beginning, but some don't. And so you want to make sure the plans have been approved for construction, which means this thing is actually going to be built. And so you always want to include the date, the last date. If there are any revisions, so the last date here was 8/7/2023, and so that's the date we're going to put on our cost estimate based on plans and specifications dated that date. Okay, so this is our cover sheet. So Next couple of sheets, we'll get a good idea of the size of what we're doing. You know, we have to do the linear measurements, so we're going to make sure we know the scale and that it's correct, and we check all of that stuff. So again, when it comes to the equipment, you may want to count from here or just count from the riser diagram if it applies, if it appears to be easier. Okay, and so this is the waste and vent. So you know your symbols: vent, broken lines, and then GW, grease, waste. And then now when we get to the actual estimate, you always want to keep in mind, new construction, you want to have that rough in cost in addition to the equipment cost. So don't forget that, but that'll be when we're doing the actual estimate. So you want to think about that always when it's new construction. All right, so waste and vent, okay, easy, you know, pretty easy, right? Pretty straightforward. Then the water plan, hot water, cold water. Now I tend to, depends on how much time I have, I'll break it down. How many linear feet of cold water, how many linear feet of hot water, but typically it's the same type of pipe. So depending on how much time you have. But yeah, it's always good to break it down. And then pretty simple, you know. And again, when we do our pricing, our cost book will give us assembly price, so we don't have to concern ourselves with elbows and T's, because it incorporates that price within its assembly price per linear foot. And if you do a lot of estimates, that's what you want. Okay, that's what you want, so you can knock them out real quick. And then so water supply plan, and then last but not least is our riser diagram. And so like I said, a lot of times I'll just do my equipment counts from here, because typically everything is here one time. Okay, and when we get to the riser diagram, of course, every time we see a vertical measure, and if it's a typical single story building, we'll say each one of these, even the, well, this is basically when we visualize, when we do our estimating for this portion, what we have to do, the valves, the cutoff valves, they always have different whatever. This seems to be, you know, we're going to look at that. So I don't know what that is, because when it's gray it means something, but we'll look at it when it's time. So every time we go up, we always assume single story 10 feet. And then this measure you're going to see on the plan, so you don't even have to worry about that. And this is basically the rough end cost that you're associating. This is broken off, so it's telling us to continue. But again, the horizontal measures you'll get from the actual plan, so you don't worry about that. It's just the riser diagram is to show you how many times each size pipe is going up, and typically up into the ceiling. And then the details. Okay, so we're going to do a separate series for the site work plumbing, and this is for the building only plumbing. Okay, so these are the sheets that we need to concern ourselves with. P1.0 is all of our, so here we can, you know, and for the purpose of the class or sample estimates, just go to Google, Zern, MopSync, that model. It'll give you a price. Don't make it, you know, if you don't have the cost book that we have, that we use at this point, just Google the price. Okay, now, material, that's what we have to discuss, and we'll give you a way to do that during the class. But you need to figure that out once you complete the class, because you need an accurate cost book database that you can go to without having to pick up the phone or wait for somebody to give you those numbers back. And we'll tell you what we use and what we recommend. All right, so I think that's pretty much everything. So for this, again, cover sheet, our waste plan, our water plan, our riser diagram, the details. Okay, and what else? And some specifications. Okay, so that's that. And we make that pretty easy. So in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to go over, it's very plumbing. It doesn't have to be difficult, and this is very simple. That's why this is our very first one. So in the next video, we're going to review the waste and vent plan takeoff and how best to get that going. And we're going to do the equipment takeoff, counting the equipment, pieces of equipment, both from the plan itself and also from the riser diagram, to see if we have any discrepancies, if we do make mistakes, or if there is a difference, or main thing, if you make mistakes, but you should come out with the same thing. And what is this? Remember, anytime you see that, that's a revision cloud, where they have made changes in the plans, but they don't want to fully redo the plans because it's expensive. So they explain what it is, and that'll be somewhere here, which they do. So this is our first of 4 videos, plus some extra added bonus videos you'll get in the set. And either whether you are a student or you purchase this on your own, everything will be there to help you sharpen your skills. And if you have any questions, please email me at education@sfjohnsonconsulting.com. We're going to learn a lot, and let me know what you think. Talk to you soon.